Hello there, my name is Will Patillo and this is another Unity programming tutorial. It's based on a request for working with audio sources in Unity. So what we're going to be building here, I'll just give you a demo of my test scene that I've built already. So there's nothing going on visually, but as I press keys on the keyboard, I can play kind of a nice beatboxing sound. If I press that same key, turn off the loop, I have other tracks. And I can play multiple at the same time. I also have sound effects that I can just toss in at any point, also by pressing keys on the keyboard. Or if you just hear the sound effects by themselves. Alright, so that's what we're going to be creating. I may have a follow-up tutorial on this to get to some other features like fading in and out. For now, I think there's enough here to just focus on playing different sounds, mixing up looping tracks and effect tracks. So start off, this is my scene. It's empty right now. I'm just starting from the beginning. All I have is a main camera. I'm going to switch this from a skybox to a solid color, and I'm just going to make it black for now. That way, when I play the scene, I just have a black screen. If you want something other than black, obviously, like red, right, then you have that. But since the scene isn't really focused on anything visual for now, then this will work. Another way I could expand on this would be to create little buttons that and be able to click on them to play songs. But for now, key presses are going to work just fine. Okay, so first I'm going to set up my scene a little bit more. Create an empty game object. I'm going to call it player, just a way to this is just going to be to organize things. Make the main camera child of the player object. And I'm also going to make all of my audio sources a child of player. And in audio, I'm going to create some more placeholders. One for songs and another one, create empty for effects. Okay, and then within songs, I'm going to have, say, track 1. I'm going to add a audio source component to track 1. Get more over this in a little bit. Press Control D to create a duplicate of that, and name this track 2. Take a duplicate of that, toss this in effects. Call this effect 1. Actually, you know what? Just to make use of naming conventions, put that in parentheses. That way, when I press Control D, I get them named the way I like. Effect 2 and effect 3, without having to press F2 and rename any of them. Okay, so these songs I want to be able to loop as they play. So I'm going to select both of these. So I just press Control while clicking to get multiple at the same time. I'm going to turn off play on awake because I don't want them to start playing as soon as the scene begins. I want it to be based on the user control. And I'm going to turn on looping. Next, for these effects, okay, click the top one, hold Shift, click Effect 3 to select all of them at once. Again, turn off play on awake, and I'm going to leave looping as off. Next thing I'm going to, so right here there's an audio clip, so I'm going to assign some those beatboxing files that I made just at home recording into these, and The clip is where the track is actually played. So let's see, here's my groove sample right here. These are audio clips. You can think of an audio source as like a user interface that allows you as a developer to play the clips and mess around with some of their properties. So go into my audio files here, and I'm going to make all of these, this whole project, including these clips, is going to be available on GitHub. So you can make your own tracks and just toss these in. You can download some off the asset store, or you can use mine off the GitHub. This will also have the programming in there if you get stuck or just want to skip the code along portion of this and just have it complete. Although I recommend, if you're learning this, to actually follow along with the typing. I find myself things that I learn stick a little better if I'm actually building it myself. So anyway, track 1, I'm going to take this groove simple clip and drag it in to my audio clip. Then go to track 2, take groove skip, put that in here. Effects, get my toms down, drag and drop. Effect 2, toms up, and effect 3 will be my crash. One other note on all of these audio sources. This right here, the Spatial Blend, it's currently set to 2D on everything. I'm going to leave that, but it's worth explaining what this is. So when a source is played and it'll be attached to an object, if the Spatial Blend is set to 3D, then it's going to take into account how far away this audio source is from the audio listener. So right now the audio listener is attached to the camera, which is part of the player. In this game, we're not really using distance at all. So by setting it to 2D, just saying it's going to play at the max volume all the time. Whereas if it was 3D, the farther away it is, the quieter it is. We don't need that, so 2D it is. But if you're actually in a game world and say you have like an enemy like walking or barking or doing something off in the distance, it'd be good to have the Spatial Blend at 3D for that case, so that you can get a sense of the distance in the game and it's not like it's making a noise right next to your ear. Next, I'm going to create a script. So it's right click just in this empty space, create C# script, left click, and I'm going to name this audio controller. Okay. Double click it to bring it up. We're only going to be using this Unity Engine library, so can delete those. We will be using both start and update, although I'm going to change these little comments here. They're not particularly helpful. I'm going to use the start function to initialize some of our variables. So this start method is called as soon as you press play. Update, we are going to use this to get user input. And update's a good place for user input kind of stuff, because you never know when the user's going to press a button. So update's going to be running every single frame, and whenever an event of interest happens, we'll be checking for it here and then calling whatever methods we need to when that happens. Let's declare our variables up here. Let's say a public audio source, and let's just start with 1 for now. Public audio source sound. Now, the reason I'm making this public is I want to be able to access it in the inspector window. So what I mean by that is, so let's say I take this audio controller and drag and drop it onto the player. Notice how sound variable comes up here. If this were a private variable, then it would not show up. Alternatively, actually, I think I'm going to use this because it's a little better programming practice. I'm going to use serialize field. So that'll bring this up. The way serialize field is different from public is that if a variable is public, then that means you can access the variable from other scripts or other instances of the script. And we don't really need to do that here. So using serialize field allows you to access the variable, like drag and drop things in the inspector, but it's still private in the sense of that other scripts can't access it. So that's kind of perfect for what we're using. All right, anyway, I've created my serialize field sound. Let's just start with track 1. I'll just drag track 1 into it. And that's able to work because this has a audio source component attached to it. If it did not, let's say I were to take this player and try to drag main camera in, there's going to be a slash through it because main camera doesn't have an audio source on it. And this variable has been declared as an audio source. And let's try to play it. So start with getting a bit of user input. One thing I should go over right here is if you go into Edit, Project Settings, Input, you'll have Input Manager right here. And I'll start this over from the beginning. So if you've just started a new project, it's going to look like this. You should have about 18, a size 18 on your axes. And I have 5 different tracks I want to play, or 5 different inputs from the user that I can get. So I'm going to expand this to 23. And all the ones that I add are just going to be a copy of this last one. So we'll just leave all these others alone and ignore them, and just go one by one on these. So I'm going to change this cancel to a track 1, and add for this positive button field, I'll just type a 1. So positive button is which key you'd have to press on the keyboard in order to activate this input. The nice thing about using these input manager right here, as opposed to just getting key presses directly and hard coding those in, is that theoretically you could have multiple different key presses that could play this, that could map to the same input, which is great if you're working cross-platform, for example. What's a key press 1 on a PC might be the same as pressing the X button on a Xbox controller or something, or whatever console you're using. I don't actually know if an Xbox has an X button, but it kind of seems like it should. Anyway, go through the rest of these. I'm going to call this track 2. If I can type, track 2, and create positive button 2. Open this one up, SFX1, and for this I'm going to use the positive button as A, SFX2, positive button S, and finally SFX3, positive button D. Okay. So now to actually make use of that in update, I'm going to say if input.getButtonData down, and then type in quotes track 1. And I'll just put this for now. So this get button down is going to fire once on the moment that the user presses the key that is associated with this input. So in our case, that's going to be the 1 key, because we just defined that over here. So it looks for when this fires by pressing this, then this will be true once. If, on the other hand, we were to say get button, then this would fire as true continuously whenever the player has the 1 button pressed, which is not what we want here. Okay, so if the player is when the player is pressed the button associated with track 1, then we're going to say sound.play. So let's run this. I press the 1 key and that starts playing. However, if I keep pressing it, it just starts over, rather than what I'd really like to happen is for it to stop. So I'm going to check whether it's playing and only play if it's not currently playing, and stop if it is playing. So add some open and closed brackets here, put another conditional check. So if sound.is playing, then sound.play, or sorry, if it is playing, then we stop, else sound.play. Okay, so now I'm going to run this again. Hopefully I saved, right? Yeah. So I press 1, the track starts playing, press 1 again, and it stops. I can start and stop it whenever I like. Now I'm going to repeat this for track 2. Add another variable here, and I'm going to rename this to sound1, 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 sound2, sound2, sound2. Okay. That also means that in the player, I now have sound 1 and sound 2, so I'm going to drag track 1 into sound 1, track 2 into sound 2. So now I should be able to start and stop the first track by pressing the 1 key, and also start and stop the second track by pressing the 2 key. Right, and it works. Now I'm going to stop for a moment and try to refactor this a little bit, because you can see right now that things are starting to get a little bit repetitive. And whenever you see yourself like writing the same code repeatedly, it's probably doing something a little bit inefficiently, and you should bring in some additional methods. Just call them with in different forms to just make your programming a little bit more efficient. So the first thing I'm going to do is, instead of having a separate variable for every single sound, I'm instead going to turn this into an array, and I'm going to call it sounds. So let's see, just to get rid of these compiler errors and show you the effect of that, I'm going to comment this all out. So Unity doesn't update the inspector if there's errors. Now if I look at player, see as sounds is now got this list kind of thing going on here. currently its size is 0, and I can enter 2, and now 2 elements show up. So again, I'm going to drag track 1 and then track 2. That's the first step towards making this a little bit more efficient. Next, I'm going to take this code essentially and put it into a method. So I'm going to call this void play song. Okay, uncomment this and get rid of all this stuff. So if get button down track 1, I can say sounds 0 dot play song. Oh, sorry, I need to actually put this stuff in here. So get rid of that, get rid of that, edit, advance, decrease line indent. Okay, now it plays the song, but it doesn't know. This could be used to play any song, but we need to be able to tell it which one in this array to play. So I'm going to pass in, actually, instead of sound0.playSong, I'm just going to pass in an argument, and I'm going to call this, I'm just going to put in a 0. Then it's going to receive that 0 by typing in int song ID. Now, I'm going to go sounds song ID dot is playing. Grab this, and paste it here and here. Also, whenever you only have one line in a conditional, you can actually get rid of those. So I'm just going to get rid of some of these brackets. I think it looks a little cleaner. All right. So you get the user input for track 1. We're going to call this method and pass in a 0. If we get the button for track 2, we're going to call this same method but pass in 1 as our argument. When this method is called, it's going to receive that number. For now, it's just going to be a 0 or 1. And if that track is so if let's say they pass in a 0, then this is going to become the first element in this array. If they pass in a 1, then this is going to resolve to the second element in the array. And so whichever one it is, if it's playing, you stop, and otherwise you start. So we've just made things a little bit simpler, cut out some duplication, and see if it works. Good, track 1 works. Great. So still works. Now, if that felt like a lot of extra work for not a whole lot of lines that we're getting rid of, you can imagine if there was like 100 different songs we could play. Only having to do this once and making this shorter is a good trade-off. All right. So next, gonna move on to playing the sound effects. So let's see. Cut and paste this, and if we get SFX1, play song 2. Now I'm going to increase the size of this sounds array up to 5 so I can include our sound effects. Drag 1 in here, 2 in here, 3 in here. There we go. So this is going to pass in song ID 2, which will resolve to this element, which is playing this audio source, the toms down. Now, one thing we get a little bit of a problem here is that sound effects don't play the same way as looping tracks, because they don't loop. So this functionality here isn't really going to help us as much. Yeah, we could, cut off the toms down mid playing, but that's not that useful, and we want it to be able to just run whenever the player hits the key. So I'm going to create a different method, void play effect, also pass in int song ID, and this time we're just going to take sounds song. Actually, you know what? Variable names are important, so I'm going to call this call this effect ID. Okay, dot play. Okay, that I think should be all I need. And let's also repeat this for the other two sound effects. Get 2, get 3. This one I play track number 3, and this one I play number 4. All right, so and then next, actually I need to call that method, play effect. Okay, that's good. So if it's press 1 or 2, then they plays a song. If they press A, S, or D, then they'll play effect 1, 2, or 3. Let's test that. So songs work as before, and effects and I can play them and overlap them and repeat them as much as I like. Just what I want. Now, one thing, this is another programming stylistic thing, which I think we can improve this a little bit, is I don't really like having to know here whether I'm playing a song or an effect. I'd like the program to just figure that out. It'll make it a little less likely for me to run into errors. And you notice I almost had a problem earlier of when I had play song here and almost forgot to change that to play effect. So I'm going to have just this program figure out which one of these functions to call. And instead, I'm going to create a new method called SoundTypeCheck. And I'm going to pass in int sound ID. And this one is just going to look at if sound ID. So if the item in the array that corresponds to the ID number that was passed in is a looping track, because remember, the way we differentiate between the tracks and the effects is the tracks have this loop property checked, whereas the effects do not, so that's how we can tell them apart. So if the loop property is checked, then we play song, and then pass along that sound ID. Else, play effect. Also, again, pass in sound ID. Now, the benefit of all this is now we can just take this SoundTypeCheck method and use that to replace all of our songs and effects. And our numbering's the same as it was before. So this should play exactly the same way. See, I'll run it. Yep. So everything works exactly the same way, but now our code is a little bit more robust and versatile. And also, because we have this little method right here that effectively acts as a switchboard between different types of music that we're going to be playing. The other benefit of this is if we were to expand this further, so we weren't just choosing between looping tracks and non-looping tracks, but we had like a lot more other variables or for types of sounds to play or types of effects to create. We could just put more conditionals in here and call the wider variety of different methods down here, and just expand the switchboard to increase the complexity of our program. Okay, now the next thing I want to create as a little bit of an improvement, and we'll also illustrate some concepts, is I think that the effects are a little bit too quiet. I'd like to play them louder and keep the looping tracks the same as they are. Now, one way I could do that is I can just go in here and take this volume property and increase it, except that for whatever reason Unity just won't let me. I can try to type in a 2 here and it just goes back to a 1. I don't know why they put in that restriction, because it's perfectly capable of playing at volumes above 1. It just doesn't let you set that in the inspector. So a way around that is on this play effect, instead of using the play method, we use play one shot. And here, I'm going to comment this because it's going to give me an error for now. I need to put in the clip to play and another argument to pass in the volume. So I can set this as 2f right here, or 2, and say that it's a floating point number. And this way I'll be able to play the clip at double the volume that it normally is, which is what I want here. Now the tricky part though is I need to get a reference to the audio clip in order to do this. So one thing I could do here is to just go serialize field, audio clip, make this another array, call it clips, and then in the player, the clips, make this 5, and then go into my audio, and then just start assigning some of these clips in. So like groove simple, groove skip, and so on. But I'm actually not going to do this because I find this a little bit tedious. It's just more assigning in the inspector of things that, there's another way to automate this process. And I like automating things when I can because it's less likely to make a mistake. Also, if this were like hundreds of items long, that would be really tedious. So instead, get rid of the serialized field. I don't need it. I'm just going to populate this array as we go. So that's going to happen in this start method here as soon as the program begins. So first, I need to define how big the array is. So clips equals new audio clip, and it's going to be the same length as the array of sounds, and this one is set in the inspector. I don't really, there isn't really a good way to automate this. I mean, I could by getting the number of children in each of these objects, but that's more trouble than it's worth. You initialize the array, you set the memory for it here, and then initialize the length that it needs to be, which is the same as the length of the sounds array. Next, I'm going to create a for loop to fill each item in the array. So for int I equals 0, I is less than sounds.length, I plus plus. Then, and I'll explain all this in a moment, clips I equals sounds I dot clip. Okay, let's describe how this works. So we're going to create a temporary integer that's just going to use it. That's going to just work as a counter. It starts at 0. That's where computers start counting, and it's going to stop when it gets to the length of the array. So this, and then and each iteration, this counter is going to go up 1. So basically, what's going to happen is that this line is going to execute, I guess that's 5 times, because that's the length of our sounds. And each time, this I variable is going to go up by 1. So the first time it's going to be clips, the 0th clip is assigned to whatever is in the clip property of the first of the 0th sound, then same with the first, second, third, and fourth. So take another look at this, sounds I.clip. So let's say we're looking at 0. What that's going to refer to is element 0 right here. It's going to look at this first element, which is this one. So if I click that, it refers to this. And then it's going to get this clip property in the audio source, and it's going to assign this clip right here to the 0th element in our clips array, and do the same thing for the first, second, third, and fourth. So now our clips array is completely filled, and it should match our sounds array. Now, if I go back down here in this play one shot, I'm going to type in clips effect ID and 2F. Let's say we go in, say the player presses A. It's going to resolve to which maps to the SFX1. So SoundTypeCheck is going to pass in number 2 here. It's going to look at that, receive that 2, looks at that sound. It'll see that the looping is set to false, so it's going to play effect and pass along this 2 that it received over to here. Then the second item in the sounds array list is going to play the second clip in the clips list at a volume of 2. That was quite a mouthful. Let's see if that works. So I press play. So those are a little bit louder than they were before. And the songs are the same volume as they were. Now, if that difference was a little bit subtle and you want to increase that, I can just put a 5 there. So now it should be louder still. There may be a maximum as to how loud it can actually go. So maybe as a better example, say we wanted it quieter, I would put a 0.2 there. Now you can hear that the sound effects are clearly quieter. But I'm going to leave that at 2 because I like that volume right there. And I think, yeah, and we're done. Now we have something that can play effects, can play songs. A lot of properties of this are automated to minimize the amount of work if we're to expand this. And that, I think, is all that we're going to go through. Oh, one other thing. Just a little detail for something in the inspector window right here. One thing I noticed is that if I press tracks 1 and 2 at the same time, they're kind of not in a good alignment with each other. And the reason for that is because if I look at my groove simple and groove skip and compare them, I can notice that the groove simple is 5.328 seconds long, whereas my groove skip is 5.041. And the reason for that is because when I was just kind of recording those little beatboxing sounds, my timing's decent, but not so good that I'm able to get a full 4-count track to be exactly 5 seconds. So the way we can make up for that is if we go into, say, track 1 and we can speed it up in the Unity editor. The way we can do that is by modifying this pitch variable. So I'm going to change track 1, which is slightly longer, to 1.055. That means it's gonna play this clip 1.055 times faster than normal, which will do two things. One, the track is effectively going to get shorter in terms of actual time. It's also going to get slightly higher pitch. That's okay. So I take this, play them both. Now they're overlapping a little bit better, as you can hear. They sync up fairly well, and I think it sounds a little better. Sorry, I couldn't resist. And I got this 1.055 just from experimenting around with it. You can change those numbers however you like. Pitch is also nice if you want to like drop things down into like slow motion. You can put this at 0.5. So for example, if I take both of these and put the pitch at 0.5, hear what it sounds like. Sounds a little different, but I'm just going to keep it where it was. So track 1 and 1.055. That's a fun thing to play around with. And I made you some more of this in a follow-up video. But for now, that is all. You have a full thing that you could expand this as much as you want. So if you could add like 10 more songs and like 50 more effects, all you'd have to do is take this sounds and bump up this number here. You just add more tracks and effects here and then assign them into this list as you need. You don't need to worry about defining whether they are looping tracks or effects, because this little switchboard method right here will determine that for you. One other thing I suppose we could do if we wanted is we could mess around with this number a little bit by passing in another argument on the play effect, and maybe having some variables that could change as we go. But for now, I think that's good. So if you have any questions or a problem setting this up, things you're curious about, or if there are other ways you think it would be really neat to extend this example that you're curious about learning how to implement, all those would make great things to put in the comments, and I'll try to respond to them as best as I can. If you like this video, if you feel like you learned something from it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Will Patillo signing out.